One man stands above every other warrior on the field at Troy, and his commander takes from him a single captive woman. The greatest fighter in the Greek army does not answer by fighting harder. He walks away from the war entirely. Then he prays to the gods to let his own comrades be cut down in his absence, so they will learn what they are without him. To a modern eye, this looks monstrous. A sulk, a tantrum, but a tantrum with a body count. Thousands of his own size sent to their deaths, over one insult and one woman. Hold that judgment, because inside the world this man actually lived in, his terrible choice is not madness. It is the only move a man of that world could make. To understand why, we have to learn to see honor the way he did. His name is Achilles, the commander is Agamemnon, the woman is Briseis, and the poem that holds their quarrel opens not with war, not with Troy, not with Helen, but with a single word, wrath. The very first word of the Iliad is anger. The Greek word is Menis. It stands at the very front of the poem in the form menin because it is the object the goddess is asked to sing. Menin Eidesia, wrath sing goddess. Goddess sing the wrath. And the rest of that first line names whose wrath it is. Achilles, son of Peleus. That choice of word matters. Everywhere else in the Iliad, Menis means one thing only, the anger of a god. Greek has many words for human anger. Homer passes over all of them. From its opening breath, the poem gives Achilles a rage that belongs to the divine, and marks him quietly as a man set apart from ordinary men. But notice where the poem begins. Not at the start of the Trojan War. It drops us straight into the middle of the story. The Romans had a phrase for this, in medias res, into the middle of things, coined by the poet Horace. A good epic, he said, should open already deep in its action, not crawl toward it from the beginning. This works only on one condition. The audience already knows the tale, and Homer's did. A bard singing traditional material could take it completely for granted that his listeners knew the Trojan War, its heroes, its shape, who did what and where, and to whom. So the poem never stops to explain who Achilles is or Agamemnon or why they are camped on a beach far from home. All of it is assumed. Instead, the opening tightens onto one episode, a short stretch of time in the war's final year. This is not the story of the whole war. It is the story of a single quarrel. Much of what we think of as the Trojan War never happens on the page. Achilles' own death lies outside the poem, though it is foreshadowed again and again. The fall of the city, the trick of the wooden horse, those come later too, beyond the poem's edge, yet always anticipated. The Iliad constantly gestures past its own borders, leaning on the larger tradition its audience carried in their heads. Achilles himself makes no sense without it. His character only lands if you already know he is destined to die at Troy. That coming death runs beneath the whole poem like a current under still water from the first line to the last. Remember too that this is a performance, not a book. Homer sings to a hall of listeners, drawing on a vast reservoir of story they all share. From that ocean of legend, he chooses one current, the wrath of Achilles, and follows it. Every allusion to what lies outside the poem lands, because his audience already carries the rest of the tale within them. Return to that first word, wrath, and the poem tells us at once what it costs. Listen to the opening lines. Sing goddess, the anger of Peleus' son Achilles and its devastation, which put pains thousandfold upon the Achaeans, which hurled in their multitudes to the house of Hades strong souls of heroes, but gave their bodies to be the delicate feasting of dogs, of all birds, and the will of Zeus was accomplished. The beginning is abrupt, no warm-up. We are thrown into the wreckage. In just a few lines, every great theme of the poem is struck at once. The anger of Achilles, its devastation for the Greeks, the quarrel with Agamemnon that ignites it, and most mysterious of all, the will of Zeus quietly moving toward its own end. So consider the quarrel itself. Agamemnon has taken Achilles captive, Briseis. To feel the sting of it, look at the two men. Achilles is beyond dispute the finest warrior the Greeks possess. Agamemnon is the leader of the expedition, but not, as people sometimes say, the king of the Greeks. There is no unified Greece here and no single Greek king. Achilles is a king in his own right. So is Menelaus. So is Odysseus. Agamemnon is a king too, but for this war, this expedition, the others have granted him command. He holds authority over Achilles, even though Achilles is by far the better man in battle. Hold on to that tension, because everything turns on it. The man with the authority is not the man with the might. Agamemnon can give the orders. Achilles can win the battles. In a world where a warrior's whole worth is measured and displayed, that gap between rank and greatness is a wound waiting to open. Now the harder question, why the loss of one captive should set a man ablaze like this? To answer, we have to ask what a warrior of this world is really fighting for. On the surface, the Greeks came to win back Helen, but each man on that field wants something for himself, two things above all. The Greeks called them time and Kleos. Time is usually translated as honor, Kleos as glory or fame. Hold on to the Greek words though, because the English ones mislead. These are ideas with no clean match in our language, and they need to be explained. Start with time. It is not an inner sense of honor, not a private conviction that holds you up, no matter what others think. Time is the opposite. It is the external, physical proof of honor. It is what your peers hand to you. For a god, it is what mortals give in sacrifice, and because it is a thing, solid, material, it can also be taken away. That single fact changes everything. Timber is a zero-sum resource. If one warrior gains more of it, another must have less. This is nothing like our modern honor, which is endless, where my dignity costs you none of yours. In this world, honor is a finite pool. More for one man means less for another. Tim is measured in prices. In the spoils a warrior wins when he sacks a city, gold, cattle, bronze armor, and captured women. These are honor made visible. Briseis is exactly that, the tangible sign of Achilles' worth. In precise Greek, she is his gera, his prize of honor, the finest gift his peers could grant to mark how great a warrior he is. That is what Agamemnon strips away. Picture the aftermath of a sacked town, the spoils heaped on the shore, bars of gold, herds of lowing cattle, sets of bronze armor, and the captured women standing among them. The greatest fighters are handed the finest of it, in full view of the army. Every prize is a public verdict, spoken in objects. This is how much we honor you. So the wound is far deeper than jealousy. Yes, there is jealousy. Briseis is his concubine, but the real injury is to his time, and that is far more serious. Take the woman, and you have taken the public measure of the man. Now the second thing, Kleos, glory, fame, reputation. Literally, it means what people say about you, so what is spoken aloud concerning your name. Time and Kleos are bound tight together. The more visible honor a man piles up, the more tongues will praise him. Win the prizes and the praise follows. Lose them and the talk turns. But Kleos carries something more, something enormous. It is the only immortality a Homeric warrior will ever have. Kleos is what people say of a man in life, yes, but above all, it is what they say once he is dead. There is no bright afterlife waiting in this world. There is only the memory that survives you or does not. This is why the stakes could not be higher. A warrior can win no heaven, no reward beyond the grave. His only forever is the song, the words sung about him after he falls. The Iliad you are hearing is itself that song. To lose your Kleos is to be forgotten, and to be forgotten is the only true death. So watch what happens when Achilles loses his time. Dishonored before the whole army, stripped of the visible tokens of his worth, his Kleos itself is thrown into doubt. Will he be remembered as the greatest of the Greeks or not? Agamemnon has not merely seized a woman, he has put Achilles' immortality at risk in his own eyes and in the eyes of every man watching. But Agamemnon is not acting out of pure spite. To see why he lashes out, trace what has just been done to him. He too has lost his prize of honor. He has been forced to give back his own Geras, the woman Chryses, daughter of a priest of Apollo named Chryses. A word about the names because they tangle easily. Achilles' prize is Briseis, Agamemnon's is Chryses, and Chryses is the daughter of Chryses. Briseis, Chryses, Chryses. The echo is unfortunate, but that is simply how the names have come down to us. Keeps them apart and the quarrel stays clear. The story sets it up fast. Chryses comes to the Greek camp carrying the emblems of his priesthood and begs in Apollo's name for his daughter back. Agamemnon refuses him coldly, so the old priest prays, and Apollo is not only the god of healing, but the god of plague. He answers, "A sickness falls on the Greek army. This is the thousandfold pains of the opening lines. Men die by the score. Agamemnon asks his prophet how to lift it, and the answer is plain. Give Chryses back. He has no choice. The god has forced his hand." But a god forced this loss. That raises a sharper question. Why Achilles should be the one to pay for it? The answer: Achilles had been loudest among those urging Agamemnon to return the girl and stop insulting Apollo's priest. So Agamemnon fixes on him as a fitting target for his resentment. Fault or no fault. And there is more. A commander who has visibly lost honor before his men must claw it back. The surest way is to seize the prize of the greatest warrior of them all. On the surface, the two losses look the same. Each king has his prize of honor stripped away. Achilles loses Briseis, Agamemnon loses Chryses. It would be easy to call it even. One man's injury simply passed along to another. But look closer. The two losses are not equal at all, and the difference is exactly what makes Agamemnon's conduct indefensible. First, Agamemnon's loss was demanded by a god. His woman was not taken on some human whim. She was surrendered to end a plague that was slaughtering his own soldiers. As commander, he should have put his men above his own honor from the start. The choice was stark. Keep the girl and let Apollo kill or give her back. He should simply have given her back. Second, there was no spare prize to hand him. As Achilles points out early in Book 1, all the loot from the sacked towns around Troy is already shared out. Troy still stands, but the Greeks have plundered its smaller allied cities, and that is where both Chryses and the Briseis were seized. There is nothing lying free in the camp to give. Achilles even promises that when Troy finally falls, Agamemnon will receive the richest prize of all. His loss, in other words, is only temporary. Here is the crux. Agamemnon's injury was forced by a god and served the whole army. It lifted a plague from his people. What he does to Achilles is nothing of the kind. It is a bare human-to-human insult aimed at one purpose only, to degrade the greatest of the Greeks in front of everyone. Faced with that, Achilles does not merely sulk. He sets in motion the very catastrophe the poem announced in its first breath. He withdraws from the fighting. If his honor can be torn from him this easily, he says, he will fight no more. He even threatens to load his own men, the Myrmidons, into their ships and sail home, abandoning Troy for good. Then he does something stranger still. He calls out across the water to his mother, Thetis, a goddess of the sea. He asks her to go to Zeus, king of the gods, and beg him to hand the Trojans the upper hand, to let the Greeks be beaten until they learn what it means to wage this war without Achilles. Thetis rises from the waves, hears her son's grief, and agrees that Aaron does more than push the plot forward. When Thetis climbs to Zeus, the poem lifts us onto Mount Olympus and lets us watch the gods among themselves. Homer's listeners already knew these gods. They prayed to them, believed in them. But here the bard does something no mortal could. He shows us how the gods speak to one another, and how much even Zeus can bend the course of events, and that opens onto one of the poem's deepest ideas, fate. Every human being has an allotted moment of death, a fixed hour, appointed that not even the gods can move, not even Zeus. For most of the mortals in the poem, that is all fate means. They will die at a set time, though none of them knows when. A warrior falls, and Homer says simply that his fate took him. There is something almost unbearable in that idea. A man may fight brilliantly, may pray, may run, but the hour of his death is already set, and no courage and no god will move it. The heroes at Troy live under that shadow, Achilles most of all, who knows the shadow is close. But Thetis' appeal reveals something subtler. The end point of fate is fixed. Troy will fall to the Greeks, and nothing can change that. Yet the path to that ending has give in it. Zeus can rearrange what happens along the way. He can lift the Trojans up for a time, to please Thetis, and to let Achilles prove how much the Greeks need him. The destination is sealed. The road there, Zeus can redraw. And this is a masterstroke of storytelling. It builds suspense for an audience that already knows the ending. No one in Homer's hall fears that Troy might win the war and rule the sea. They know how it closes. The tension lives instead in the details, how much damage the Trojans will do, and how long Zeus will let it run. The known ending only sharpens the question of how they arrive at it. The device solves a delicate problem too. This is a Greek epic, sung for Greeks, and it is uncomfortable to show the enemy, the Trojans, beating them, even for a while. When Achilles walks away and the Greeks nearly break, one might wonder if they were simply the weaker fighters. Homer's answer is to lay at the feet of Zeus. The god has decreed that without Achilles, the Trojans will prevail. The setback is not Greek failure, it is divine will. Which brings us back to where we began. Has Achilles simply lost all sense of proportion? To a modern reader, it looks that way. A commander takes his concubine, and he answers by trying to get his own comrades killed. Judged by our standards, it is a wild, monstrous overreaction. But judged by the standards of his own world, it is not excessive at all. And the reason rests on a single fact. One anthropologist have given a name. The society the Homeric poems reflect is a shame culture. In a shame culture, a person's sense of self, his very worth, is built entirely from what others say, think, and see. Its opposite is a guilt culture, where a person's image of himself comes from within, from his own private sense of who he is. Set Achilles inside each. In a guilt culture, he could shrug, I know I am the greatest of the Greeks, so let Agamemnon shame me before the army. I know the truth in my own heart. But a shame culture offers no such shelter. If the others see Achilles as a man without honor, then in a real and total sense, he has none. His honor, his identity, his very importance, all of it lives outside him, in the eyes of others. See with how strange that is to us. We are taught that self-worth comes from within, that no insult can touch what you truly are. Achilles' world runs the other way. There, a man is a mirror held up to the crowd. What they reflect back to him, he becomes. Strip away their regard, and you do not merely hurt him, you unmake him. So see now what Agamemnon has truly done. He has not merely insulted Achilles, he has called into question Achilles' entire worth, almost his entire identity as Achilles. In a shame culture, that is not a bruise to the pride. It is an attack on the man's whole existence, and there is only one way to answer it. Achilles must prove his worth by making the Greeks suffer for his absence, by letting their ruin say aloud what Agamemnon tried to deny. And here is the terrible clarity of it. In his world, Achilles is not throwing a fit. He is doing the only thing that can restore him. If his worth lives in the eyes of the army, then only the army's ruin can prove that worth. His comrades must die so that his greatness can be seen. It is monstrous. It is also, within that world, perfectly logical. Later in the poem, Achilles will go further still. He will come to doubt the entire system that made him, the whole machinery of Kleos and the Time, the warrior's code itself. But that reckoning is still far off. Here in Book 1, his only possible reply to Agamemnon's affront is this: to demonstrate his worth by letting the Greeks bleed without him. With that, Book 1 has done its work. It has set the quarrel between Achilles and Agamemnon, shown the devastation his wrath will bring, and drawn back the curtain on the gods of Olympus. Now the bard can move into the body of the poem, introducing both armies, Greek and Trojan, the great characters, and at last the fighting itself, and turning in time to Troy's own people, to Priam and to Helen. So the vast machinery of the Iliad turns on a single word, wrath, and on a quarrel a modern reader might dismiss as wounded pride. But once we see honor as a prize that can be seized from your hands, glory as the only immortality a man will ever taste, and identity as something built entirely from what others say, Achilles' terrible choice stops looking like a tantrum. It starts looking like the only move a man of his world could make. And everything that follows, the long suffering of the Greeks, the slow working of the will of Zeus, the fate that waits patiently at Troy, all of it flows from that first divine anger. Wrath. Sing, goddess, the wrath.